In the heart of a bustling city where dreams often collided with harsh realities, lived Clara Thompson. A spirited woman in her late 20s, Clara had always envisioned a life filled with adventure and romance. Instead, she found herself entrenched in the relentless grind of survival, navigating a world that seemed to conspire against her every ambition. A string of dead-end jobs and mounting debts painted a bleak picture of her current existence. With each passing day, the weight of her financial struggles pressed harder on her shoulders, casting a shadow over her once bright dreams. Clara worked as a receptionist at a local law firm where she spent long hours answering phones and managing paperwork for clients who seemed to have lives filled with promise. The office buzzed with conversations about vacations, new homes, and family events, every topic serving as a painful reminder of what she lacked. The walls of her small apartment were adorned with faded posters from happier times, remnants of an artist's spirit she felt slipping away. As bills piled up on her kitchen table like ominous towers ready to topple over, Clara felt the pressure mounting. She had been evicted from her previous apartment due to unpaid rent and now lived in a cramped studio that smelled faintly of mildew. Each month was a battle against eviction notices and final warnings from creditors. Her dreams of pursuing art, her true passion, now seemed as distant as the stars. It was during one particularly despairing evening that Clara received an unexpected phone call from an old college friend, Melissa. They hadn't spoken in years since graduation, but Melissa's voice brought back memories of laughter and carefree days. As they caught up, Melissa mentioned that she had married well, her husband was wealthy and well-connected. "Clara, you should really consider dating someone more financially stable," Melissa suggested lightly, unaware that Clara's heart sank at the mere thought. "I mean, you deserve to live life without worrying about money all the time." The comment lingered in Clara's mind like an unwelcome guest, nagging at her conscience while simultaneously igniting a flicker of desperation. It wasn't long before she began to entertain thoughts she had previously dismissed, the idea of marrying for money rather than love. Days turned into weeks as Clara wrestled with this concept. She envisioned herself walking down an aisle not for romance but for security, a partnership forged in practicality rather than passion. The realization both repulsed and intrigued her. It felt like betraying every romantic ideal she held dear while simultaneously offering an escape from her harsh reality. With newfound resolve, Clara ventured into online dating platforms that catered to affluent individuals seeking companionship or arrangement-based relationships. She crafted an alluring profile that highlighted her creativity and charm while subtly hinting at her desire for stability. It was all very modern, a blend of hope wrapped in desperation. Then came Ethan. His profile struck Clara immediately with its polished photographs and charismatic biography that painted him as both adventurous and successful. He worked in finance and claimed to love outdoor activities like hiking and sailing. His smile radiated confidence mixed with an air of mystery that drew her in deeper than she'd anticipated. Their initial messages flowed effortlessly. Ethan was witty and engaging while also exhibiting just enough intrigue to keep Clara on edge. Within days, they agreed to meet at an upscale cafe tucked away from the chaos of city life, a place where people dressed impeccably and sipped artisanal coffee under lavish chandeliers. When she first laid eyes on him across the marble-top table, Clara felt a rush of nerves mixed with excitement. He was even more handsome in person than his photos suggested. They laughed together easily over shared stories about their lives, each anecdote weaving them closer together while masking the underlying intentions simmering beneath their conversation. Yet beneath the surface charm lay an unsettling uncertainty that neither dared mention aloud. What secrets hid behind his confident demeanor? Was he merely another faceless stranger or something deeper? As their relationship progressed swiftly into flirtation and intimacy, Clara found herself both exhilarated by the lavish gifts he showered upon her yet increasingly aware that marrying someone she barely knew could lead them down paths neither expected. The thrill mingled dangerously with trepidation, the first steps towards something she had never imagined would become real. Marrying a stranger for money might solve one set of problems but could just as easily open doors to darker realities lurking beneath the surface. As the days turned into weeks, Clara found herself increasingly drawn to Ethan. Their conversations flowed like a gentle river, full of laughter and shared dreams, yet always tinged with an undercurrent of uncertainty. Each encounter, whether in person or through late-night texts, further solidified her attraction to him. He was charming, attentive, and had a magnetic presence that made her feel special even amid her tangled life of struggle. One crisp autumn evening, after a delightful dinner at an upscale restaurant where the ambience buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, Clara and Ethan strolled through the city's park. The trees were adorned with orange and gold leaves which crunched beneath their feet. The air was cool and fragrant, and the moonlight bathed the scene in a soft glow. It felt like a perfect moment, one that might be plucked from a fairy tale. Yet Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something pivotal was about to happen. As they wandered deeper into the park, Ethan took her hand, intertwining their fingers. His touch sent warmth through Clara's body, and she felt a flutter of excitement mixed with anxiety. They paused by a small pond, its surface reflecting the stars above. The atmosphere was charged, Clara could sense it, the moment where everything could change. "Ethan," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, "do you ever think about the future?" His gaze held hers steady, those deep blue eyes revealing an intensity that both thrilled and frightened her. "I think about it all the time," he replied earnestly, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Especially since meeting you." Clara's heart raced as she absorbed his words. Was she truly ready for this? Her mind wrestled with doubts. Was it foolish to harbor romantic aspirations about a man she barely knew? But something deep inside urged her to lean into this feeling, this connection. Just as uncertainty began to creep back in, Ethan shifted his focus, pulling something from his coat pocket. With a smile that lit up his face, he revealed a delicate silver ring, catching the moonlight in its gleam. "Clara," he began, his tone serious yet tender, "I know this may seem sudden." Her breath caught in her throat as he knelt before her on one knee, the ring held delicately between his fingers. "Will you marry me?" Time seemed to halt, the world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment that felt surreal. Clara's heart raced with shock and exhilaration. A marriage proposal? From a man she had known for such a brief time? "Ethan," she stammered, her mind racing through a whirlwind of emotions, joy at the unexpected gesture clashing violently with the fear of what such a union could mean. She saw his hopeful smile falter slightly as he waited for her response. "Please don't think I'm rushing you," he continued quickly, standing up but still holding her gaze. "But I've never met anyone like you before. I want to build a life together, one full of adventure and laughter." In that instant, Clara glimpsed a vision of what could be, a life free from financial burdens, filled with luxury and comfort. The idea of marrying for stability rather than love flashed through her mind again, an arrangement that could liberate her from the chains of debt and despair. But alongside the vision came an echoing fear. What if she was making the worst decision of her life? "I need time to think," Clara finally managed to say, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. The ring sparkled temptingly in the twilight as if beckoning her closer to this new reality. Ethan nodded understandingly, though Clara could see the hope dimming in his eyes. "Of course," he said gently. "Take all the time you need. Just know that my feelings for you are real." As they left the park hand in hand, Clara's heart was heavy with conflicting thoughts. She could feel the allure of wealth and security pulling her toward Ethan's proposal like gravity, yet shadows danced on the edges of her mind. What secrets lay hidden behind his charm? Where would this path truly lead? With each step she took beside him, she teetered on the edge of an unknown abyss, uncertain whether it would bring salvation or peril. The thrill of possibility wrapped around her like a warm blanket, even as doubts gnawed at her conscience. Clara couldn't shake off the feeling that marrying a stranger might solve one set of problems but simultaneously open doors to darker realities lurking just beneath the surface. The sun peeked through the delicate lace curtains as Clara stood in front of the ornate mirror in her small apartment, now a makeshift dressing area. Today was her wedding day, and it felt surreal, like stepping into a dream while still partially awake. The air was thick with anticipation, and Clara's heart raced as she adjusted her wedding dress, a simple yet elegant white gown that hugged her figure perfectly while allowing some room for comfort. The reality of marrying Ethan had settled around her like a heavy cloak, warm yet suffocating. With every twirl in front of the mirror, she felt exhilarated by the promise of a new life intertwined with the echoing whisper of doubt. What was she truly getting herself into? Nerves danced in her stomach as her mind replayed fragmentary memories of their whirlwind romance, each moment filled with both charm and unease. Clara's phone buzzed on the table, a text from Ethan confirming he was on his way to pick her up. In that instant, an overwhelming wave of excitement washed over her. They had chosen a quaint little chapel outside the city, surrounded by picturesque gardens where flowers bloomed brilliantly against the backdrop of blue skies. It felt like a scene straight out of a fairy tale, but she couldn't escape the lingering sense that things weren't quite as perfect as they seemed. As she descended the narrow staircase, Clara spotted her friend Melissa waiting below with a beaming smile and tears glistening in her eyes. "You look stunning," Melissa exclaimed, enveloping Clara in an embrace that felt like warmth woven into her doubts. "Thank you," Clara replied softly, trying to channel some confidence into her voice. As they drove through winding roads toward the venue, Clara's heart thudded nervously against her ribcage, fraught with excitement and anxiety that mixed into an intoxicating cocktail of emotion. She caught glimpses of the scenic landscape outside, the vibrant fall foliage mirrored the colors swirling within her soul. Upon arrival at the chapel, Clara inhaled deeply as she stepped out of the car. The sound of laughter floated through the air from guests mingling under tents adorned with white linens and golden accents. Everything looked beautiful, yet inside, a feeling gnawed at Clara's resolve, the unmistakable sense she might be stepping into an unknown that could lead to both joy and despair. The ceremony began on time, and Clara walked down the aisle on the arm of Melissa, who radiated pride alongside Clara's trepidation. Ethan stood at the altar looking handsome in his tailored suit. His expression was one of unwavering adoration that set off sparks of happiness within Clara's heart. For those fleeting moments beneath the archway draped with fresh flowers, she allowed herself to believe in their dream together. Yet small signs started to emerge throughout the ceremony. Her gaze flitted around at their assembled guests. Friends from college mingled curiously with Ethan's refined colleagues who wore expressions too elegant for such a casual setting. A few whispers carried past them. Old acquaintances seemed puzzled by the sudden union between two distinct worlds. "Are you sure about this?" Melissa leaned close during their vows and whispered softly enough for only Clara to hear. It sent another jolt through Clara. The same concerns echoed across her mind but were quickly silenced by visions of financial freedom and stability. When it came time for Ethan to kiss his bride as newlyweds suffered solemn vows fulfilled before witnesses, stitching their lives together as one, an overwhelming number flooded over him when their lips met tenderly yet lingered on an unexpected heaviness that troubled Clara further. As they exited hand in hand amidst cheers and rice tossed above them like confetti celebrating new beginnings, a jarring thought crossed Clara's mind when noticing how Ethan cringed slightly when touched by their jubilant well-wishers. A fleeting shadow passing across his joy-filled face. Maybe it was nothing, a fleeting thought barely rooted somewhere deeper, but something warned Clara, not everything glittering is gold. As reception festivities began and bridal dances spun under twinkling lights illuminating faces bursting joy, but there looming above them all was uncertainty whispering treacherous questions clawing once more at Clara's conscience. Would this choice grant freedom or entrapment? At that moment, among love-struck smiles twirling within festivities blended into echoes, doubts rose louder than laughter. She couldn't shake off feelings wrapping tightly around each note, caution struck like discordant chords and alarm-ringing warnings beneath surging euphoria surrounding this illusory day when ties bound tight would grip tighter still between colors painted bright. Into shades lurking unseen shadows accusing before they'd glimpsed beyond whatever dreams awaited just beyond those gilded doors ahead, pooling darkness waiting unsaid. The first few weeks of marriage felt like a whirlwind, wrapping Clara in a cocoon of luxury and comfort that was both exhilarating and slightly surreal. Gone were the days of sleepless nights spent worrying about unpaid bills and the oppressive weight of financial insecurity. In their place was a world where every meal was filled with gourmet delights and every evening offered the opportunity to explore the city's finest establishments. She found herself swept into a stunning new chapter that contrasted starkly with her past. Ethan whisked Clara away on an impromptu trip to a picturesque coastal town. His private beach house overlooking the azure waves was nothing short of breathtaking. As they arrived, Clara stood stunned on the sandy shore, feeling the warm breeze kiss her cheeks. The taste of salt lingered in the air as seagulls called overhead, and she couldn't remember ever experiencing such serene beauty. It felt like stepping into a dream, one filled with endless possibilities. They spent lazy mornings wrapped in soft linens on a terrace that overlooked the ocean, breakfasting on fluffy croissants paired with fresh fruit and perfectly brewed coffee. Ethan would often tease her about how she savored every bite, his laughter ringing out like music to Clara's ears. For so long, meals had been rushed and uninspired. Now she reveled in each moment of indulgence, feeling pampered for the first time in her life. At night, they danced under a blanket of stars twinkling above like diamonds scattered across velvet. Ethan held her close, whispering sweet nothings while soft melodies floated from a nearby record player. In those moments, Clara closed her eyes and allowed herself to forget the doubts that had plagued her leading up to this commitment. The world outside melted away, and here, with Ethan's strong arms around her, everything seemed perfect. Their connection deepened amid this newfound luxury. Clara felt cherished and adored. Days turned into evenings filled with laughter as they discovered hidden gems within the town, cozy cafes that served the best pastries or art galleries showcasing local talent. Each date felt like living within some romantic movie rather than reality. Yet underneath the surface euphoria lay currents of uncertainty that Clara attempted to ignore. There were still occasions when Ethan's cell phone would buzz wildly during dinner or when he'd step away to handle calls, his demeanor becoming unusually tense for brief moments. Clara brushed it aside. After all, he was successful in finance and such pressures were expected, but tiny threads of doubt began weaving themselves into the fabric of her thoughts. One rainy afternoon back at their apartment in the city, Clara sat comfortably on their plush couch flipping through home decor magazines while sipping herbal tea from an elegant china cup. She admired the way light spilled through their floor-to-ceiling windows, an oasis amidst urban chaos, and thought about how far she'd come from cramped living spaces bearing witness to struggles. This was home. It felt right even as whispers of unease curled at the edges of her mind. As she glanced out over the skyline, she noticed a familiar figure dashing past on the street below, Ethan's business partner leaving their office building just as rain began to fall heavily from darkening clouds overhead. But it wasn't just any ordinary sight, there was something urgent about the way his body moved. Inexplicably drawn by some hidden instinct, Clara's heart raced as troubling questions invaded her thoughts. What had Ethan been involved in that warranted such urgent behavior? Why did he constantly seem unwilling to discuss specifics about his work or arrive home late without explanation? Shaking off her suspicions, Clara tried to focus back on her blissful reverie. The cushions enveloped her like marshmallows, and kisses shared just moments ago still tingled on her lips. They had only been married a short time. Perhaps all these feelings stemmed from adjusting to this new life together. That evening as they settled down for dinner, Ethan wore an easy smile while recounting tales from his day at work. His charm was unshaken as usual. It eased her tension momentarily but left behind lingering thoughts threatening to disrupt her contentment. Each smile ignited warmth within her soul, yet dark clouds gathered over this lavish lifestyle, an unsettling sense threatening to unravel threads connecting them tightly together, a reminder that even paradise could harbor secrets too heavy for hearts unprepared. Still captivated by luxury blurring every worry, tracing edges too close for comfort, Clara yearned for clarity. The very foundation she stood upon trembled just beyond, rays of golden sunlight brightening their path ahead. As the weeks unfolded, the initial euphoria of Clara's marriage began to fade into a complex tapestry of emotions. While she indulged in a new life filled with luxury and comfort, underlying currents of unease persisted, and small peculiarities in Ethan's behavior began to stir suspicions within her. Clara first noticed it during dinner one evening. A simple meal at home transformed into a moment of tension. They had both returned from long days. Clara felt grateful for their lavish apartment but still sensed something amiss. As they sat across from each other at their elegantly set table, Ethan's phone buzzed incessantly on the counter. He glanced at it repeatedly, his brow furrowing slightly each time. "Is everything okay?" Clara asked tentatively, hoping her voice didn't betray the anxiety building inside her. "Just work stuff," Ethan replied quickly, forcing a smile that seemed a little too wide. "You know how it is." She nodded, though an unshakable feeling lodged itself in her chest. With each buzzing notification that he promptly ignored, she felt increasingly disconnected from him, as if there was an invisible wall separating their worlds. A few days later, while tidying up their living room, Clara stumbled upon an envelope peeking out from under the coffee table. It was addressed to Ethan but bore no return address. Curiosity piqued, she hesitated only briefly before lifting it free and carefully opening it. Inside were papers filled with figures and references that meant nothing to her, a contractor's estimate for what appeared to be construction work on a commercial property. Clara's heart raced as she recalled Ethan mentioning he worked in finance but had never spoken of any involvement in real estate. Was he hiding a side business? The thought of deception tightened around her like a vice grip as questions swam through her mind. Why hadn't he mentioned this? What else was he keeping from her? Deciding not to confront him just yet, Clara tucked the papers away and resolved to observe him more closely. That Saturday morning, while brewing coffee in their sleek kitchen, Clara overheard Ethan on a phone call in his home office. He spoke in hushed tones, his voice low and urgent enough that it pricked at Clara's ears despite her efforts not to eavesdrop. "I can't be involved in this anymore. It's too risky," he said sharply before pausing as if listening intently to someone on the other end. "No, I need time. I'll figure it out." Heartbeat pounding loudly in her ears, Clara found herself frozen mid-motion, a cup half filled with freshly brewed coffee trembling slightly in her hand. The words rolled over her like thunder. Ethan's tone was grave and laced with an unease that mirrored the doubts festering within her heart. It wasn't long after that incident when another oddity emerged during dinner with close friends, a couple they both knew well who were good-natured but commented curiously about Ethan's recent business dealings. They spoke of rumors swirling around his company regarding some questionable investments and tumultuous management changes that had raised eyebrows among investors. "Ethan seems pretty tight-lipped about everything lately," Melissa joked lightly at the table as glasses clinked and laughter floated above them like soothing melodies, though Clara felt more disquiet than humor. "Yeah," another friend chimed in. "He should give us some tips." Ethan laughed along with everyone else's cheer but gradually stilled as an expression flickered across his face, something between irritation and discomfort, before smoothly diverting the conversation elsewhere. Clara watched him closely. Something deep inside urged caution. The doting husband smiling across the table suddenly felt like an enigma wrapped tightly within layers of charm but shadowed by secrets unshared. Back home later that night, Clara replayed every detail in her mind like fragments of a film montage where all the pieces didn't fit together perfectly. She settled into bed beside Ethan but struggled to find solace in his presence amidst swirling thoughts hauntingly echoing through her consciousness. Who was this man she had married? Days passed, she felt torn between confronting him and allowing time for deeper insights to unfold naturally. But every day brought more muted phone calls punctuated by hushed conversations, furtive glances exchanged between colleagues when they met socially. It all painted a troubling portrait layered with intrigue yet veiled behind charm. The enticement of luxury remained tantalizingly close like shimmering mirages while shadows loomed larger over colorfully woven tapestries filling their lives together. A stark reminder that even amidst beauty existed darkness just waiting patiently below shimmering mirrors reflecting distorted truths. Driven by instincts urging clarity over comfort, Clara resolved that soon enough she would need answers, perhaps even face whatever lay hidden within the man wrapped snugly beside her. Otherwise, those shimmers would blind them both endlessly until all familiar warmth retreated beyond shifting tides pulling towards perilous cliffs masked by sprays catching light. The tension that had been building inside Clara reached a breaking point one rainy afternoon while she was tidying their apartment. Having sensed something was off for weeks, she felt that if she had any chance of understanding Ethan, it was now or never. She needed answers. Determined, Clara decided to dig a little deeper into the hidden aspects of her husband's life. With her heart pounding in her chest, she ventured into his home office while he was out running errands. The room still carried a faint smell of cedar and fresh paint, a testament to Ethan's preference for a stylish yet comforting atmosphere. Papers were strewn across his desk, some stacked in neat piles and others spilling over the edges like cascading waterfalls of confusion. One stack caught her eye. It was much thicker than the others, laden with documents ranging from financial statements to legal papers covered in what looked like complex contract language. Clara's heartbeat quickened as she flipped through them, each page revealing more and more intricate details that sent her spiraling deeper into unease. Then came an envelope that made her hands tremble as she extracted it from the pile. Unlike the others, this one wasn't filled with numbers. Instead, it was a collection of court documents bearing bolded headings, pending litigation, fraud charges, and defendant's statement. As her eyes scanned the pages, clarity began to crystallize around fragments that had tormented her for so long. Ethan was potentially facing serious criminal charges. The walls felt like they were closing in on her as panic surged through Clara's veins. How could he have hidden this from her? Every intimate moment they shared now felt tainted by deception and betrayal. Each word struck like daggers in her heart. She was married to a man entangled in illegal activities. "Clara?" Ethan's voice startled her from her thoughts, causing her to jump as the door swung open behind her. He paused at the threshold, surprise flickering across his features before morphing into guarded caution. "What is all of this?" Clara managed to ask, holding up one of the pages like an accusation. Ethan stepped forward but faltered when he caught sight of what was in her hands. The expression on his face twisted into something unreadable. Was it guilt or fear? Whatever emotions boiled within him simmered beneath his surface charm. "It's not what you think," he said slowly, advancing further into the office with an air of defiance that almost stoked Clara's burgeoning anger even more. "Then explain it to me," she pressed, brave yet trembling inside as adrenaline surged through her being like wildfire consuming everything in its path. "I can't," he retorted sharply, running a hand through his hair, an action that once seemed endearing now morphed into another layer of frustration for Clara. "You wouldn't understand. It's complicated." "Complicated? You were involved with pending fraud charges." Her voice rose unsteadily with disbelief spilling out as panic clawed at the edges of reason gripping tightly around them both. The foundations were fracturing underfoot even as comfort slipped away faster than sand through fingers. I did what I had to do. Ethan snapped back defensively. It was about survival. I swear I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. His tone shifted slightly. A hint of desperation emerged between layers built tightly against impending exposure, hungering for clarity among fraying truths, weighing down happiness cradled precariously against shadows slithering beneath fear-streaked confessions, masking realities too heavy to lift swiftly alone. Clara took a step back. Every reassuring memory she clung onto before unraveled rapidly before her eyes. A prison built by his secrets blossoming around both their hearts, filled slowly with dread, beginning disjointed rhythms lost among fractured dreams, once free now bound tight between unspoken words, grasping desperately for breath but gasping against the weight pressing down, towards dark depths pulling relentlessly downwards. Tears stung at Clara's eyes while fury collided with heartbreak, a million questions buried beneath. All colliding violently amidst confessions laid bare, turning this man she thought she knew into an unfamiliar figure illuminated by light juxtaposed against harsh realities, painted dark against canvases ripped apart, filled previously only with laughter. Kindness shared, warm embraces, cherished moments together, united bliss threatened behind distant stars, heady glimpses glittering above. In that perilous moment, wrapped tightly within encompassing darkness, contrasting stark against gleaming memories fraught with warmth once believed contained amid swirling confusion unfurling everywhere, she realized a choice awaited lying ahead. Trust him despite everything, enticing promised paradise intertwined dangerously edged closer together despite truths exposed painfully unrelenting just outside their grasp. The air in the apartment seemed to thicken around Clara, tightening like a noose as she faced Ethan at the dining table. The remnants of their dinner were untouched, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on their faces that felt more ominous than romantic. A palpable tension hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as Clara gripped the edge of her chair, preparing to confront the man she had vowed to love. Ethan stood by the kitchen counter, his back to her as he stared into the distance, lost in thought. The silence stretched between them until Clara could bear it no longer. "Ethan," she began, her voice steady yet trembling underneath. "We need to talk about the documents I found." At the sound of her voice, he turned slowly, a carefully crafted calmness painted across his features. "What documents?" Clara's heart raced. She refused to let him sidestep this confrontation. "The court papers, fraud charges, pending litigation. Why didn't you tell me about this?" Her words fell from her lips like stones, each one heavy with accusation. Ethan's expression darkened. "Clara, I can explain," he said, deflecting her gaze with a defensive posture, his hands gripping the counter behind him. "Explain what exactly?" Her voice quivered with rising emotion. "That you've been hiding something so monumental from me? That our whole life together is built on a foundation of lies? It's not like that. I was trying to protect you," he insisted, stepping forward but not quite closing the distance between them. He looked like a man cornered, frustration mingling with fear swirling in those deep blue eyes she once found so comforting. "Protect me?" Clara echoed incredulously. "By lying to me? By dragging us into whatever mess you've created? I thought we were building a future together, but now all I see is deception." Ethan's shoulders slumped slightly under the weight of her words. "You don't understand what I was involved in before we met. I got caught up in something that spiraled out of control. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." "Then tell me," Clara urged, desperate for clarity amidst the storm brewing inside her. "What were you involved in? Were you really just helping people or playing with their lives and finances?" He looked away, squeezing his eyes shut for a brief moment as if blocking out memories he wished would stay buried. "I was trying to make a name for myself," he confessed, his voice lower now, almost vulnerable. "I thought I could turn things around after so many failures in my early career. But then I got involved with the wrong people and things escalated too quickly." "Too quickly?" She shot back, tears of frustration beginning to form at the corners of her eyes. "This is not just a mistake. This is criminal. Your choices affect both of us now. I was never going to let it come to this." He raised his voice slightly, his own emotion surging forward in desperation as he stepped closer again, searching for connection amid the chaos swirling around them. "I thought it was behind me. I thought I could keep you safe." "Safe? By keeping me in the dark?" She shook her head vehemently, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow flood through her veins like fire punctuated by ice. "Every single moment with you now feels tainted. How could you think I would trust you after this?" "I love you," he exclaimed suddenly, raw and primal, catching her off guard for a moment. Clara took a shaky breath, wrapping her arms around herself as she fought against wave after wave of betrayal and anguish crashing down upon her. Love isn't enough when it's built on betrayal, she whispered hoarsely. Silence loomed between them, the once warm environment now felt frigid as their intertwined lives dangled precariously on the edge of an abyss, one she'd never anticipated stepping close to when they had exchanged vows only weeks ago. Clara, he said tentatively, reaching out toward her as if hoping to bridge the chasm that had opened up between them. But Clara took a step back, shaking her head slowly as clarity poured into her heart like cold water. Tell me everything, all of it, and then we'll decide what happens next. With those words spoken into the heavy air thick with uncertainty and unspoken pain, an uneasy gravity settled around them both. The chasm widened further still, but perhaps within those shadows lay some light waiting patiently for its chance. For clarity above confusion and answers unveiled across uncertainty threatening everything they had barely begun to build together. Clara sat on the edge of their bed, the soft quilt beneath her feeling like shifting sands. The weight of recent revelations pressed heavily on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Outside, rain pattered softly against the window, mirroring the turmoil within her, each droplet a reminder of the choices she faced. She had spent days caught in an emotional whirlwind since confronting Ethan about his past, grappling with conflicting thoughts and feelings that tore at her heart. On one hand, there was the allure of financial security that Ethan represented. The luxurious lifestyle they had briefly enjoyed together had given Clara a taste of what stability could feel like, far removed from her previous struggles with debt and uncertainty. With Ethan's wealth came opportunities she never imagined possible, traveling to places she had only dreamed about, dining in exquisite restaurants, and living in a beautiful apartment filled with memories that seemed too good to be true. But on the other hand loomed an unsettling truth. Clara couldn't shake off the moral implications of staying with someone involved in criminal activities. The very foundation of their relationship felt tainted by deception. How could she build a life with a man whose past was riddled with lies? Each moment they shared now felt overshadowed by doubt and betrayal, a constant reminder that love and trust were fragile things easily shattered. Clara's mind raced as she considered her options. Could she remain with Ethan knowing everything he had hidden from her? Was it possible to ignore the gnawing feeling that staying with him would compromise her values? She had always prided herself on integrity and honesty, qualities she believed defined true love. Yet here she was, teetering on the edge of a decision that threatened to pull her into murky waters. The tension between wanting security and preserving her principles left Clara feeling paralyzed. She longed for clarity but found only confusion wrapped tightly around each choice laid out before her. Staying would mean accepting his past and, by extension, his decisions. It would require a leap of faith into an uncertain future built upon fractured trust. What if Ethan was genuinely remorseful? What if he truly wanted to make amends and turn his life around? In those moments when he expressed love for her, Clara felt an echo of hope that perhaps redemption could be possible. But then again, were those sentiments merely words, a desperate attempt to soothe guilt while hiding deeper truths? As night enveloped their apartment in darkness, Clara found herself drawn into memories of happier times, the laughter they shared during dinners spent exploring new restaurants and quiet moments wrapped in each other's arms while watching movies late into the night. A part of her yearned for that intimacy again, even as another part recoiled at the thought of continuing this charade. Ultimately, though, Clara knew she had to choose for herself. This wasn't just about Ethan's truth or what lay ahead for him, but rather about who she wanted to be moving forward. Would she allow fear to dictate her choices or embrace courage despite its weighty implications? With trembling hands, Clara reached for her phone and scrolled through messages from friends who had been concerned during this tumultuous time. They offered encouragement as well as distractions from the chaos swirling around her. Perhaps a night out or coffee could provide some respite from these spiraling thoughts. Yet beneath those diversions lay a gnawing sense of urgency. She needed resolution not just from him but within herself before any outside influences clouded judgment further still. Taking a deep breath, Clara made up her mind. Their next conversation couldn't wait any longer. It needed to happen soon so they could face whatever consequences awaited them both head-on rather than lingering indefinitely amidst shadows dancing across uncertainty. With renewed determination flickering within like sparks igniting flames ready for kindling, clarity began pushing its way through darkness looming over all choices ahead. The light beckoning them toward honesty, demanding accountability regardless what price might come along. And so she resolved. Whatever transpired next would shape not only their relationship but define who Clara Thompson chose to be amid trials testing their commitment against truths buried deep among webs spun tightly over fragile hearts yearning for authenticity instead. The rainy afternoon turned into an unexpected moment of clarity for Clara as she resolved to seek advice from those she trusted most. Burdened by the revelations about Ethan and her emotional turmoil, she instinctively reached for her phone, scrolling through names in her contacts list until her thumb lingered over Melissa's number. It felt both comforting and daunting to connect with someone who had known her long enough to understand the intricacies of her fears and desires. Clara dialed and waited, her heart pounding in anticipation. When Melissa's cheerful voice greeted her on the other end, a wave of relief washed over Clara. They arranged to meet that evening at a cozy cafe nestled in the nearby Arts District, a place filled with warmth, laughter, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. As Clara walked into the cafe later that evening, the familiar decor, a blend of colorful paintings lining the walls and rustic wooden tables, filled her with a sense of nostalgia. The low hum of conversations mingled with soft music playing in the background, creating an atmosphere where secrets could be shared away from prying ears. Clara. Melissa waved exuberantly from a corner table adorned with candles flickering softly against the glass. As they embraced, Clara felt a rush of warmth, someone who had always cared for her, who might take away some of this uncertainty burdening her heart. "I'm so glad you came," said Melissa, sipping on her cappuccino. "What's been going on? You seem different." Clara hesitated before sharing snippets of her life since marrying Ethan, how their relationship had initially blossomed amidst luxury but now loomed fraught with questions and doubt. It felt like peeling layers off an onion, each revelation elicited emotions too complex to distill into mere words. "So, what happened exactly that made things shift for you?" Melissa asked gently but firmly. Clara took a deep breath and revealed everything, the court documents detailing Ethan's alleged fraud charges and the hollow feeling she carried ever since their confrontation. With each word spoken, it felt as if another piece of pain floated away into the room while fresh dread flooded in its place. Melissa listened attentively until Clara finished recounting everything. Her brow furrowed thoughtfully, it solidified that their conversation would lead somewhere significant. "Clara," Melissa began cautiously, "you know I care about you. But have you thought about what staying with him means?" "I don't want to throw everything away," Clara replied almost instinctively, clinging on to hope like a lifeline. "He's not just some criminal, he was my partner." "Yes, but relationships are built on trust," Melissa cautioned softly yet firmly as Clara flinched slightly at those words piercing through layers covering uncertainty inside her heart. "You need to consider whether you can rebuild that trust after this." Clara nodded, grappling with how to articulate deeper truths stirring beneath surface-level chaos. Was financial security worth sacrificing perhaps more crucial aspects like loyalty or mutual respect? She couldn't overlook concerns swirling vividly around whether love existed simply alongside comfort provided. The implications hovering dangerously close drew lines between choices once made lightly versus enduring consequences layered thickly upon fragile hearts amid disorienting chaos voiding hope desperately yearned for instead. Just then, Clara's thoughts were interrupted when a couple at the next table began discussing real estate investments. She caught snippets about market trends but quickly focused back on Melissa's voice cutting through such distracting sounds. Strong yet tender toward clarity desired within murky darkness surrounding every choice left unspoken growing heavier between where loyalties lie instead breaking them heartbeat by heartbeat drawn closer together across widening chasms threatening tumbling backward. Beyond far-reaching throes already tangled within fear wheeling endlessly toward unsatisfactory resolutions. Looming ahead back desperately toward uncertain turns left unresolved. "Don't let fear dictate your choices, you know what you truly value." The words settled around them as if imbued with light-piercing darkness lingering behind those walls separating Italy-bound dreams shimmering brilliantly beyond reach hidden from public sight sparkling brightly just outside alive hanging there waiting patiently regardless. Price unknown still left undiscovered ahead amid trials testing every commitment bared between love stitched outward held tightly close. Taking one last sip from her cup filled halfway gone less warmth warming fingertips longer seeped within liquid courage. It was time those manifestations pushing forward met face to face whatever shape transformation regained along existing spun nerves tightening once bound freely drifting along sounds echoing through cracks revealing walls kept safe spinning shadows cast across paths. Previously forked forward edging unclear through steps taken bravely snapped within resolve demanding. Restoration above all, shared memories cherished despite vulnerabilities experienced, still remaking past learning, standing strong, overlooked near fading promises glimmer. Decisions running neck and neck, chasing solutions, slipping by, confidently turning focus, entering tomorrow unafraid, whatever presses, laden heart beating, purposely leading, journey defined by truths uttered, bare belief, soothed heartstrings racing, insight painstakingly, delicate intertwined affirmations left enduring, steady onward. Discover friendships blossom beautifully beyond dire uncertainties, waiting patiently, caught midst summoning possibilities, brighter dawn breaking slowly, illuminating lives, craving towards something worth its stretch beyond veils, hung low, holding firm, life wishing tangibly free. The pivotal moment arrived unexpectedly one Thursday evening, transforming Clara's contemplation into immediate action. After her heart-to-heart with Melissa, she felt a renewed sense of determination, but also burdened by the growing weight of uncertainty surrounding her life with Ethan. She planned to confront him again, hoping to demand more transparency about his past. However, fate intervened in a way she never anticipated. That night, Clara returned home late after meeting Melissa. The rain had poured incessantly throughout the day, and puddles glistened like little silver mirrors under the streetlights that illuminated her path. She entered their apartment feeling the damp chill seep through her clothes, but her heart raced with a mixture of resolve and fear. As she stepped inside, Clara noticed the quiet. Too quiet. Ethan should have been home by now. He had promised to wrap up early after spending the day at the office. The silence felt heavy, pressing down on her instincts as if signaling that something was amiss. "Ethan," she called out tentatively, her voice echoing in the stillness. No reply came. She walked through their beautifully decorated living room toward the kitchen, but it was empty too. The dining table lay undisturbed, set for two but lacking the warmth of their usual shared meals. An unsettling feeling crept into her chest as she glanced toward Ethan's home office door, slightly ajar. Curiosity mixed with unease compelled Clara to approach the door. Peering in, she gasped at the sight before her. The office was filled with scattered papers and folders tossed haphazardly across the desk, remnants of a frantic search or perhaps a last-minute attempt to hide something. But more alarming was Ethan himself. He was on the phone with someone, his voice low and tinged with urgency. "All I need is one more week," he was saying, his tone sharp and frantic. "I can't afford to lose everything I've built up until now." Clara's breath caught in her throat. Betrayal rushed over her like a tidal wave as pieces of a dark puzzle began to fit together in her mind. Who was he talking to? What more did he have to lose? The realization that his troubles extended far beyond mere financial missteps struck her with chilling clarity. With every word spoken into the phone, resentment and panic grew within her. This was not just a man who had made poor choices. This was someone deeply entrenched in a world she had barely glimpsed, a world that threatened everything they had tried to build together. "Ethan," she said sharply from behind him, unable to contain herself any longer. "Who are you talking to?" He turned abruptly, surprise flashing across his face before morphing into an expression of guilt. "Clara, I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly," she replied coolly, taking a step into the office and allowing herself to survey the chaos around them. "What's going on? Who were you speaking to?" Ethan hesitated for a moment too long. It dawned on Clara that he hadn't expected her home so soon, or perhaps hadn't wanted her to hear what he said. "It's nothing," he stammered, though his eyes betrayed him. A flicker of panic darted beneath their surface. "Nothing?" Clara repeated incredulously. "This doesn't look like nothing to me." She gestured toward the scattered papers covering his desk, each one now representing a web of lies that tangled them both deeper into darkness. "I'll explain everything," he began lamely, stepping closer in an attempt to calm her down, but Clara recoiled instinctively from his touch. "No," she exclaimed vehemently, grounding herself. "You've had plenty of chances to explain the truth. I deserve more than just vague reassurances." The room fell silent once again as Clara's heart thudded loudly against her ribcage, a rhythmic reminder that time was slipping away from them both amidst unraveling threads fraying before their eyes. "I can fix it," Ethan insisted desperately, his voice rising slightly as tension filled the air around them. "Just give me time." But Clara could no longer stand idly by awaiting information he had repeatedly chosen to hide. Deep within her churned a fierce resolve. This was no longer about love or financial security alone. It was about choosing integrity over deception and reclaiming power over her future. "Time," she replied sharply, shaking her head in disbelief. "Time is precisely what you've squandered. You need to choose between this life you've created and me." With that ultimatum hanging heavy between them like an executioner's blade suspended above their heads, Clara felt something shift inside her. A turning point ignited by rage and clarity entwined together, at last urging her toward conviction rather than despair. "I can't live in uncertainty anymore," she declared firmly as realization washed over her like cleansing rain, catching light shimmering against darkened paths ahead, waiting patiently for forward steps taken boldly, unafraid. And so began the journey toward resolution and unveiling, compelling both hearts caught helpless, still tethered together, drawing closer toward light, dancing brightly against shadows threatening their bond. The aftermath of Clara's ultimatum hung heavily like a storm cloud over their lives. After confronting Ethan about his past and the deception that had infiltrated their marriage, a profound shift occurred within Clara. The emotional burden she had been carrying for weeks transformed into a fierce determination to reclaim her life and values. Clara knew that she could no longer ignore the reality of their situation or the implications of standing by Ethan's side while he navigated a web of lies and legal troubles. The weight of financial security felt insignificant compared to the moral compromises it demanded. In the days following their confrontation, she reflected on what it meant to be in a relationship built on trust and love, questioning whether she could ever feel secure with Ethan again. The tension between them grew palpable. Conversations shifted from laughter and lighthearted banter to strained discussions filled with accusations and defensive responses. Every moment spent together was tinged with uncertainty, leaving Clara emotionally drained. She had demanded transparency from Ethan, but instead found herself drowning in a sea of half-truths and evasions. It wasn't long before the emotional fallout began to reveal itself in other areas of her life. Clara discovered that her friends had noticed the change in her demeanor. The spark that once lit her eyes had dimmed, replaced by an ever-present look of concern. They offered support, urging her to consider her own well-being above everything else. Yet, even as she confided in them, the fear of losing the comforts and luxuries afforded by her relationship with Ethan weighed heavily on her conscience. One evening, during a particularly heated argument, Clara reached her breaking point. She had returned home to find Ethan anxiously pacing back and forth in their living room, on edge from yet another phone call he had received from his mysterious contact. "You need to understand that I am trying to protect us," he claimed, his voice laced with desperation. "Protect us?" Clara snapped back incredulously. "You're only putting us deeper into danger. How can I trust anything you say when your actions speak otherwise?" She felt anger surge within her, anger not just at Ethan but at herself for having allowed things to spiral out of control. That night, unable to sleep, Clara found herself lying wide awake, staring at the ceiling while visions of a different life swirled in her mind. She envisioned a future where she could stand on her own 2 feet, free from the deceit and uncertainty that had consumed her marriage. The thought was terrifying yet liberating, a reminder that she held power over her own destiny. In the days that followed, Clara began taking proactive steps toward reclaiming control over her life. She started organizing her finances, an endeavor she had long neglected, while wrapped up in the comforts Ethan provided, gathering information about closing joint accounts and exploring legal options should it come down to separation. She reached out to a financial advisor who could help chart a course toward independence. As she immersed herself in these practical matters, a sense of empowerment began to blossom within her. Each decision she made chipped away at the chains binding her to fear and uncertainty. Yet even as she prepared for what lay ahead, doubt crept in occasionally. Would leaving him ultimately lead to a brighter future or plunge her back into financial instability? The emotional implications became clearer as she leaned more on Melissa and other friends for support. Their encouragement reinstated confidence within Clara. They reminded her that true strength lay not just in financial stability but in personal integrity and self-worth. Ultimately, it was a chance encounter with one of Ethan's acquaintances, a former business partner who approached Clara at a local art gallery, that became the final tipping point she needed. He casually mentioned rumors circulating about Ethan's dealings and connected the dots between those conversations and serious concerns regarding Ethan's character, details that reinforced what Clara had feared all along. In that moment of revelation, everything crystallized into focus. Staying with Ethan would mean accepting not just his past but also his future decisions rooted in deception and potential danger. The fallout from her previous choices became clear. It was time to take action and make a decisive choice about her future. With renewed conviction fluttering within her heart, Clara resolved that escaping from this web of deceit was necessary for reclaiming her life. It wouldn't be easy. Navigating this transition would require courage and resilience against any lingering doubts about money or security. But the strength she found through adversity empowered her. She was ready to face whatever came next without looking back. As she stepped into this new chapter alone but invigorated by clarity gained from painful experiences behind her, Clara felt an undeniable spark rekindling within herself. A promise emerging from shadows danced brightly ahead, illuminating paths leading toward authenticity rather than illusions veiled by darkness. As Clara stepped outside into the cool evening air, a sense of liberation enveloped her. The path ahead was uncertain, yet each step away from Ethan and the life they had built together felt lighter, almost buoyant. The previous months had been tumultuous, filled with emotional battles that had tested her convictions and forced her to confront the very essence of who she was. She took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp scent of rain-soaked earth mingled with fresh blooms lining the sidewalk. Today marked not just an ending but a profound beginning, a turning point that had ignited within her a flame of self-worth that she feared had long been extinguished. Clara realized that overcoming the challenges of her marriage had transformed her, teaching her invaluable lessons about love, trust, and her own resilience. Reflecting on her journey, Clara understood that love should never entail accepting deception or compromising one's core values. She had once believed that financial stability could provide happiness. However, she learned that true security stemmed from self-respect and authenticity. The experience with Ethan illuminated these truths in ways she had never anticipated. Trust, she now knew, was the foundation of any relationship worthy of pursuing. Without it, intimacy faltered, connections frayed at the edges under the weight of hidden truths and unresolved tensions. For too long, she had placed her trust in someone who couldn't reciprocate it, allowing herself to be swept away by material comforts rather than nurturing a bond built on honesty. Clara thought about how far she had come since marrying Ethan. The woman who walked into their marriage seeking security was different from the woman who stood resolute now. She felt empowered by her choice to escape a life mired in deception in favor of one where integrity reigned supreme. The lessons learned would guide her as she ventured into this new chapter alone. In the weeks following their separation, Clara dedicated herself to rebuilding, not just financially but emotionally as well. She sought therapy to help process everything she endured and began attending workshops focused on personal development and empowerment. Each session peeled back layers of fear and doubt she carried for so long. Through newfound friendships formed during these events, Clara discovered a community of women who shared similar experiences, stories of betrayal and recovery woven into tapestries of resilience and growth. These connections reinforced her understanding of loyalty. It was not simply about being faithful to another but also about being loyal to oneself. As months passed, Clara found stability in her career. She channeled energy into pursuing art once more, a passion eclipsed by uncertainty during her time with Ethan. Her creativity blossomed as colors splashed onto canvases in vibrant expressions of freedom, each stroke symbolizing healing from past pain while forging pathways toward future dreams. Through this artistic resurgence came opportunities. Gallery exhibitions showcasing her work garnered positive attention from critics and patrons alike. Clara's confidence surged as she stood before crowds discussing art. The very expression that once brought solace now served as a powerful tool for advocacy for others facing struggles like hers. Ultimately, Clara understood that real relationships were built on mutual respect and open communication, principles guiding not only romantic partnerships but friendships too. With every step forward taken boldly amidst uncertainty lay foundations upon which healthier connections could flourish, a promise for brighter tomorrows grounded firmly within authenticity. As seasons changed and years passed quietly by, Clara embraced each moment anew while reflecting on what was lost and gained along this journey toward self-discovery. A journey etched deeply in lines across canvases crafted with love toward authenticity, revealing beauty born from shadows emerged brightly painted against darkened skies. In embracing this transformative experience fully, Clara redefined love. Not merely as an emotion flitting across hearts but as a commitment made first and foremost to oneself, leading toward enriching lives shared openly, bound tightly together, weaving intricate patterns among fragile threads, reminding all yearning souls glimmering brightly still. Touchable, awaiting promises yet fulfilled, alive, yearning, always deeper connected.